Welcome back to the Waterlogged Woodsman. In this episode we're going to be reviewing wetsuits from MAKO Spearguns. I'm going to be reviewing these wetsuits over 5 separate categories, and that's going to be durability, flexibility, looks, price, and ease of procurement. Now, if you stick around to the end, I'll also be telling you who these wetsuits are perfect for and who might be looking for another option. Now, as far as durability goes, these wetsuits are pretty good, at least pretty good for a beginner. They've got everything you would hope for. You've got these separate materials here that are not your normal open cell. We've got it on the hood and on the cuffs and on the waist. These are going to help you when you're putting on your wetsuit and you're not used to it, from keeping you from putting a fingernail through your open cell. If you were to grab onto this stuff, it won't tear. You can put your fingers in, you can really grab it hard. But if you were to do that on your normal open cell here, your fingernail would likely tear through it. So that's a really good thing for a beginner who doesn't want to be tearing their wetsuit when they're not exactly used to putting on an open cell wetsuit. You don't have to be too afraid though, because you can always fix it with a bit of neoprene glue. So these wetsuits are pretty good for that. We also have some of the general padding. We've got a chest pad, there's some knee pads on them. There, however, are not elbow pads, but the padding helps with chafing and keeping that down on the suit. And then the stitching we can see is visible on the outside. It's got glue in some places, but it's not entirely glued, and it's not hidden either, which means you do have to be a little careful of catching stitching. I've caught stitching, especially on my legs and stuff, with my stringer, clips, even sometimes the shark fins on a shaft. So you just got to be a little bit careful, but overall this wetsuit is extremely durable. For a beginner scenario, this is probably going to be better than a fancier wetsuit, if not just for the fact that they have these special kind of other fabrics involved, which are going to keep you from tearing your wetsuit as soon as you get it. Okay, on a durability scale of 1 to 10, we're going to give this wetsuit an 8 out of 10. Now, it's pretty durable. We've got these extra fabrics. There could be more padding. If we had an elbow pad, that would be great. If we saw more glue in the stitching and it wasn't so exposed, that would be great. But otherwise, I mean, this wetsuit is great. It's going to hold up. This wetsuit behind me, I've had for 5 years now. It's my 7mm that I learned to dive and use an open cell wetsuit in. And that thing is still holding up and it's still going strong. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. We're going to move on to the next category. Alright, my next category is going to be flexibility. And inside of flexibility, we're going to throw in comfort. So I'm going to start off saying that these wetsuits are pretty dang comfortable. I mean, I've had more comfortable wetsuits. We're talking about wetsuits with fire fleece I've had before, or my new Rife wetsuit has this different type of kind of gray open cell material on the inside, which doesn't tend to wax you as bad if you don't quite put enough lube in. But otherwise, these wetsuits are the same open cell material. The other thing I've noticed is that in the thicker wetsuits, the flexibility starts to become a bit more of a problem as compared to other wetsuits in the same size. So this 7mm wetsuit behind me from MAKO is a little bit less flexible than my Rife wetsuit. But my Rife wetsuit costs twice as much, and this MAKO wetsuit has lasted for 5 years and tons of dives and is still not falling apart. So we kind of have this, is it even necessary to spend the money when you get a great wetsuit and it's not really going to make a huge performance issue on your spearfishing experience? So for the flexibilities and comfort category, we're going to give these wetsuits a 7 out of 10. They're pretty good, but they could be better. So we're going to go ahead on and move on to the next category, which is price. Now, if you're watching this video, then price is likely one of the most important categories that we're going to talk about. And that's because these are a budget wetsuit that people that are looking to get into spearfishing on a budget are looking into. So for these wetsuits, I'm going to do some comparisons between this one and these MAKO wetsuits and some other wetsuits that I'm aware of. And we're just going to go ahead and put the MAKO wetsuits here. We're going to put the Rife wetsuit that I have right in front of my face. And then we're going to put a custom wetsuit price over here. And we're going to do these for my size, and we're going to do these for a 7mm because that's what I dive with locally. I'll also put a table up after this with some generic pricing across different sizing for MAKO and other wetsuits, and you can hopefully get an idea that these MAKO wetsuits are a whole lot more budget friendly than pretty much any other wetsuit you're going to find, especially available here in the US. So these MAKO wetsuits are extremely budget friendly, and a beginner spearfisherman should definitely look into them. So I'm going to give them a 10 out of 10 in the price category. Now, if you have already gotten to the point that you're interested and you're looking to possibly purchase these wetsuits, you can look below in the description. I'm going to include a couple links, one to the major MAKO website and then also to the Amazon page. And you can order it through either of them. The Amazon page is going to look immediately a little bit more expensive, but that's the cost of shipping. The Amazon page, if you buy it through there, will help me out. But either way, I hope you get into spearfishing, and I hope we can continue to have some sort of interaction here, and I can teach you a little bit more about getting into the sport. Now, if you're like me and you care a little bit about the looks too, I know it doesn't really matter a whole lot in diving. You can pretty much wear any color and get away with it. We're going to talk about looks. And as far as camouflage goes, I've found this MAKO camouflage to work really well, especially here in California. I'll put up some clips now. This brown camouflage, I mean, you pretty much disappear on the bottom, which may or may not help in hiding from great white sharks, which is what I like to tell myself. Because if you look at this blue wetsuit that my dad wore, you pretty much stand out like a sore thumb in the water. And I don't want to be shark bait, if that makes sense. The blue, however, does look pretty good in the blue water that it was made for, and you have to remember that shadows over fish are always something that stands out. Anyways, the camo looks pretty good. I would say that the camouflage is not the prettiest camouflage that I have seen. I really do like Rife Stitch Tech, and I also really like the red camo that you'll find in companies like Boucher or Bouchat, or however you want to pronounce that, and some other companies that make a red wetsuit. Red disappears at depth, so you don't actually have to worry about red standing out to the fish. But these wetsuits are extremely good looking. They blend in very well, and I'm going to give them a, let's say, an 8 out of 10. Yeah, they could be a little bit more attractive, especially on my physique. Now, this last category may or may not be important or unimportant to you. It could be a deal breaker, or it could not be a big deal, and that is going to be ease of procurement. Now, we're talking about this category especially in regards to MAKO, because MAKO is only available online. They do not ship to stores. You will not be able to go into your local dive shop and find them. Now, this is important because maybe you're a little bit nervous about your purchase, and so you're looking to go into a dive shop to try on your first wetsuit. Now, one thing you could do is go into your dive shop, try on a wetsuit with similar size specifications, and then go ahead and order your MAKO wetsuit for cheap after you've tested out the sizing. But the other option, if you know your sizing or if you trust them, which I have found them to be very true to size, everyone I know that has ordered one has been extremely happy with the sizing they got. So you can go ahead and order it off their website. But because you can only order them online, I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10 on ease of procurement, because a lot of other companies, you could just walk into your local dive shop and find one, or at least you could go try on a wetsuit from that company, which is going to likely have a similar cut, and then order the wetsuit that you're hoping for. So overall, these wetsuits are not easily procured, but the internet nowadays makes everything pretty easy. So within a few days, you can order this online. It'll be at your doorstep, and you don't even have to leave the house. So take that how you wish to. If you've made it this far, I may or may not have convinced you this is the right wetsuit for you. I'm going to say this wetsuit is best for a beginner or someone that is starting out diving, because it is very affordable, it is very durable, and it will likely last you through your learning phases. Once you're into a better, more experienced sort of diving scenario, where you've had a few years under your belt at least, and you know it's for you, and you're comfortable spending the money, then I would recommend a different wetsuit, which we'll review in the future. But for this, if you're a beginner, this is a great option. 10 out of 10 recommend. You should definitely go for it and get in the water as soon as you can. Now remember, in this video, I'll include links in the description for you to go check these wetsuits out. And I hope I'll see you in the next video. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next time.